All right, everyone, welcome. I'm Dr. Justin Carter. This is going to be the Middle Eastern course. So we're going to hit a lot of history first, and then in the first unit, we'll then hit sort of political problems, economic issues in the second unit. We'll focus on rights, I think, in the third unit, and then we'll finally close up with some U.S. Middle Eastern relations and stuff like that. I tried to keep the readings a little bit more concise this course. These 7-week classes are really difficult, and I know you probably have families and jobs and probably other classes, etc. So I'm going to try to keep the readings pretty concise and even minimize the further we go. And I'm going to add some of my own lectures outside of the readings too for this course. Okay, so the first book, we're really just for the first unit. Oh, and sorry about the syllabus problems. This seems to happen every semester. Canvas is a pain. Apologies. Anyway, all right. So the first book, it's a little outdated, but it's free, and we're really just going to focus on the history anyway. So we didn't really need anything too high level. So this is by Mihran Kamrava from 2005, The Modern Middle East, A Political History Since the First World War. I wanted to say I'm going to put some lecture slides in for each of the lectures, and I'm even going to try to figure out how to build out a better recording system so I can have them on the screen. So I've been doing some research, and I'm going to get that moving, I think, in this class. Okay, so in the introduction to the book, we really focus on just the Middle East and North Africa, right? Some call it the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa. So this is going to include anywhere from like Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, and then all the way up from Turkey, Iran, Syria, man, what else do we have in there? Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, Jordan, etc. And then we'll move even further south into the Arabian Peninsula, and we'll be looking at Iraq, um, Saudi Arabia, Oman, the UAE, Qatar, and others. Okay. So that's going to be the biggest focus of the class. We'll talk a lot about this history first, which is not exactly my expertise, but then a lot more political rights and economics and that kind of stuff the later we get into the class. But we really need to build a historical understanding of the region, right? One of the interesting things that sort of holds them together that doesn't necessarily hold other parts of the world together are sort of a shared ethnicity, right? They're for the most part Arab. Of course, they're Turkish and Persian, I guess you would call it, from the Ottoman or the Iranians, and others, of course, the Berbers in North Africa. But this sort of Arabness and Islam and etc. And sort of a core reliance on Arabic, of course, um, makes connections sometimes in the region that don't seem there when you just look at borders, right? Of course, the main religion in the area is Islam. There are breakdowns between Sunni and Shia, which we will discuss in the course. There are pockets of Judaism, and of course, the sort of Israel Palestine conflict going on, which we will also discuss. There are different pockets of Christianity. There are a lot of different looks to Christianity in the region, a lot of Orthodox from sort of the eastern side, the Druze in Lebanon, and others. So there's a pretty heavy mix of different religions in the area, but it's dominated by Islam. Um, this was used for the most part to sort of keep the region together and was used as a sort of a source for legitimacy. Islam and culture and language, etc. If you look back to the caliphates, and then sort of the Ottoman Empire and things of this sort. It was often tapped into in many ways to try to bolster the legitimacy of whatever the ruling group was, right? We have a lot of different ethnicities in the area, right? From Arab, which we just discussed, Persian in Iran, Turks from Turkey, Jews, especially concentrated in Israel, but all around the region. The Kurds, who are generally in sort of bordering on Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and Syria. And this has been an evolving issue for generations, right? What rights do the Kurds get? Should they be repressed? If we're talking about the other side's perspective, all of these sorts of things, right? And then the Berbers in northern Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, etc. Most shared rule under the Ottoman Empire, so there are also some influences from the old Ottoman Empire, though many of them have been um, in many ways purposely destroyed. If you look at Kemal Ataturk's Turkey or Reza Khan, Reza One in Iran, they purposely tried to sort of get rid of some of the remnants of the old empires that they were under, right? The region wasn't really broken up into states or what we would see as modern day territories, etc., until post World War II with the Balfour Agreement and the Sykes-Picot Agreement and others, and then especially post World War II, when everything, colonialism is collapsing, the rise of the nation state is taking hold, territorial sovereignty, etc. Right. Um, so at this point, you get sort of British monarchy in many places that are being propped up post World War One with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, but also the French in Northern Africa and later the Italians in Northern Africa. But the French sort of got not it's not contiguity because they're not touching, right, because of the Mediterranean, but it's sort of regional control over Northern Africa. The British were a lot more concerned with strategic positioning, oil, and the Suez Canal, which we'll talk about. Russia was supposed to be involved, especially post World War One, but Tsar Nicholas was assassinated, and Lenin and Trotsky's communist revolution takes over. And so they both walk away, but also the West doesn't really want to continue to include them in their agreements, right? Okay, so in the next chapter, I'm going to try to break these down because some of these are pretty huge. Um, this will be the end of this just sort of introductory section. I wanted to introduce you to the course. The lectures will be finished by tomorrow and up on the site, and the paper options will be up. Usually, I put up a bunch of options so that you can kind of choose your own adventure through my course. And if ever you want to, I don't know, study something that is not up on the board for the unit, reach out. And if it's something that you're just fascinated in or want to know more about, reach out and we can build out a research question. Okay. Next section will be from Islam to about World War One. So we're gonna roll. I mean, Lord, what is that? From the 6th century to the 20th, 14th centuries or so in a chapter. Again, this isn't my expertise, but I've done a lot of sort of studies and this kind of stuff in this section. So, but the history isn't my stuff. So I'll follow it as closely as I can. All right, thanks for being here. I'm really looking forward to this course. It should be pretty great. All right, thanks for being here. Have a great day.